Where the state of our union is expecting to get COVID. Once again, Americans are waking up to news of postponements and cancellations, sports games, theatrical performances, holiday parties, schools, family plans. As COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are rising again throughout the country. Hospitalizations and deaths especially hitting the unvaccinated. New York City and Washington, D.C. have both reported 2 days of record high cases, and health experts are warning of a tough month ahead. Still, the world in 2021 is different than it was in March 2020. Officials say they are better prepared for the surge. They point to vaccines and boosters as the best way to control the virus and prevent serious illness. All true. And yet, this fourth wave is exposing real weaknesses in how the U.S. has dealt with the virus, especially when it comes to testing. On Tuesday, we're told President Biden will give a speech on the Omicron variant, not where he thought we would be a year ago when Biden predicted Christmas 2021 might feel close to normal.
I believe we'll be awfully close to that, if not there. It's not going to be quick, but I think by next Christmas we'll be close to normal.
Joining me now, the Chief Medical Advisor to President Biden, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Fauci, thanks for joining us. If you could go back in time to President-elect Biden in that clip, would you tell him that we need a bigger multinational effort to vaccinate the world so as to stop mutations? We need to flood the country with free at-home rapid testing. We need to enlist as many Trump allies as possible to promote the vaccines, and that we should not declare independence from the virus in July, even if things look good.
Well, I think I would say all of the above. I mean, the idea about hoping and having an aspiration to be independent of the virus after a period of time is understandable and reasonable. But the one thing that we know from now almost 2 years' experience with this virus, that it is really very unpredictable, very much so, particularly with the element of variants, the idea of having multiple waves, not only in our own country, but throughout the world. First an Alpha, and then a Delta, and then now an Omicron. It really is something that is very much unprecedented when you think about the terms of outbreaks. So it is understandable how one could say they would hope aspirationally to be at a certain point and then find out you're not. And the best thing to do then is to just keep going and putting all your resources, including what you just mentioned, getting as many people vaccinated as we possibly can, and absolutely boosted now. Because when you look at Omicron and what it's doing, the protection from like a 2-dose mRNA vaccine is quite good, particularly against severe disease. But when you get to Omicron, the protection significantly goes down. But the good news is when you boost someone, it goes right back up. And that's the reason why there's such an emphasis on the part of all of us. I know I've been saying it every day, multiple times a day, the importance of getting boosted, particularly in the situation that we're in with Omicron.
Well, that's why some people say that the booster should now just be included as fully vaccinated. They want to change the definition so as when people are fully vaccinated, that means that after 6 months they get the booster, but the administration hasn't gone that far yet. Should you?
Well, I mean, in some respects, Chuck, it really is semantics. As far as I'm concerned, I make it very clear that if you want to be optimally protected, get boosted. Whether the definition for legal and other purposes dealing with the OSHA situation that you have, that's a different story. But if you want to look at it and say, when am I optimally protected, there's no doubt that that's when you get boosted.
I know you're doing a round robin this morning of all the Sunday shows, but just a reminder, I'm Jake, not Chuck. So Vice President Harris told the LA Times this week that the administration did not anticipate the variants. Quote, "We didn't see Delta coming. I think most scientists did not, upon whose advice and direction we have relied, didn't see Delta coming. We didn't see Omicron coming." And that's the nature of what this awful virus has been, which, as it turns out, has mutations and variants. Obviously, nobody can anticipate the specific next variant to come, what the protein will look like, et cetera. But in a more general sense, did you not see variants coming?
Oh, we did, Jake. We definitely saw variants coming. I think what one referred to, what was not anticipated, was the extent of the mutations and the amino acid substitutions in Omicron, which is really unprecedented. It kind of came out of nowhere, where you have a virus that has 50 mutations, 30 of which are in the spike protein and 10 or 12 of which are in the receptor binding domain. I mean, to me, that's really quite unprecedented. So that's something you would not have anticipated. But we certainly were anticipating that there were going to be variants, because when you have so much replication going on in the community, if you give a virus enough opportunity to replicate, you know it's going to ultimately mutate, and sometimes those mutations wind up being a new variant, and that's exactly what happened with Delta, and certainly that's what happened with Omicron.
The Biden administration does seem to be falling short when it comes to testing. As these cases are spiking, many Americans are stuck in long lines. Many pharmacies are sold out of the rapid at-home tests, not to mention, of course, they're expensive. The White House has even mocked the idea of sending tests to every American. Is the state of testing in the United States acceptable to you?
Well, we got to do better. I mean, we are doing better. If you look now compared to where we were a year ago, it's extraordinarily much different in the positive sense. We now have multiple at-home tests available when we virtually had none a year ago. But we do need to do better. The government now, the federal government, has been investing now several $1 billion to make anywhere from 200 million to 500 million tests available per month. Many of them free. They're going to be at 10,000 centers that are going to be giving out free tests. So we're going to be going in the right direction. We do, and I've said that myself many times, Jake, that we really need to flood the system with testing. We need to have tests available for anyone who wants them, particularly when we're in a situation right now where people are going to be gathering, even though they are vaccinated and boosted, they may want to go that extra step, that extra mile, to know that when we have people coming into the home where they're going someplace, that you could know in 15 minutes whether or not you're positive.
President Biden said the unvaccinated are, quote, looking at a winter of severe illness and death. Michael Osterholm says a viral blizzard is coming. Where is the pandemic headed right now? Do you expect new record high numbers for cases? And what about hospitalizations and deaths?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Jake, I think that is going to happen. We are going to see a significant stress in some regions of the country on the hospital system, particularly in those areas where you have a low level of vaccination, which is one of the reasons why we continue to stress the importance of getting those unvaccinated people vaccinated. This virus is extraordinary. It has a doubling time of anywhere from 2 to 3 days. Right now, in certain regions of the country, 50% of the isolates are Omicron, which means it's going to take over. And if you look at what it's done in South Africa, what it's doing in the UK, and what it's starting to do right now, the president is correct. I mean, I was with him when he said that, and I spoke to him about that we are going to be in for some serious difficulties right now, and we better be doing more to mitigate against that. And it's never too late to get vaccinated. And if you're vaccinated, go get boosted and be prudent in everything else you do. When you travel in your indoor settings that are congregate, wear a mask. It is going to be tough. We can't walk away from that, Jake. We can't, because with Omicron that we're dealing with, it is going to be a tough few weeks to months as we get deeper into the winter.
For individuals who are vaccinated and boosted, what are we supposed to do? I mean, should schools close if all the students and teachers are vaccinated and, in the case of the teachers, boosted? I mean, we saw the intense damage done to kids educationally, psychologically, emotionally when schools shut down or went to 100% virtual learning. What are you recommending?
Well, right now we can keep the children in school safely, Jake. We can do that. We've brought back like 99% of the schools were open now. We're in a very difficult situation. What the CDC came out with literally just a day or two ago was the test to stay situation, where it does work, where if you are exposed to a child in a school, rather than having to quarantine or take all the children out of school, you can test the children, and if they are negative, they can stay in school. We are trying as best as we possibly can to keep the schools open for the reasons that you just gave correctly of the deleterious effects of having to close the schools down. So I believe even with the stress of what we're dealing right now, for the most part, we can keep the schools open.